Meditations, Book 5. 1. At break of day, when you are reluctant to get up, have this thought ready to mind. I am getting up for a man's work. Do I still then resent it, if I am going out to do what I was born for, the purpose for which I was brought into the world? Or was I created to wrap myself in blankets and keep warm? But this is more pleasant. Were you then born for pleasure, all for feeling, not for action? Can you not see plants, birds, ants, spiders, bees, all doing their own work, each helping in their own way to order the world? And then you do not want to do the work of a human being. You do not hurry to the demands of your own nature. But one needs to rest too. One does indeed, I agree. But nature has set limits to this too, just as it has to eating and drinking. And yet you go beyond these limits, beyond what you need. Not in your actions, though, not any longer. Here you stay below your capability. The point is that you do not love yourself. Otherwise, you would love both your own nature and her purpose for you. Other men love their own pursuit and absorb themselves in its performance to the exclusion of bath and food. But you have less regard for your own nature than the smith has for his metalwork, the dancer for his dancing, the money grubber for his money, the exhibitionist for his little moment of fame. Yet these people, when impassioned, give up food and sleep for the promotion of their pursuits. And you think social action less important, less worthy of effort? 2. How easy it is to drive away or obliterate from one's mind every impression which is troublesome or alien, and then to be immediately in perfect calm. 3. Judge yourself entitled to any word or action which is in accord with nature, and do not let any subsequent criticism or persuasion from anyone talk you out of it. No, if it was a good thing to do or say, do not revoke your entitlement. Those others are guided by their own minds and pursue their own impulses. Do not be distracted by any of this, but continue straight ahead, following your own nature and universal nature. These two have one and the same path. 4. I travel on by nature's path until I fall and find rest, breathing my last into that air from which I draw my daily breath, and falling on that earth which gave my father his seed, my mother her blood, my nurse her milk, the earth which for so many years has fed and watered me day by day, the earth which bears my tread and all the ways in which I abuse her. 5. They cannot admire you for intellect. Granted, but there are many other qualities of which you cannot say, but that is not the way I am made. So displays those virtues which are wholly in your own power. Integrity, dignity, hard work, self-denial, contentment, frugality, kindness, independence, simplicity, discretion, magnanimity. Do you not see how many virtues you can already display without any excuse of lack of talent or aptitude? And yet you are still content to lag behind. Or does the fact that you have no inborn talent oblige you to grumble, to scrimp, to toady, to blame your poor body, to suck up, to brag, to have your mind in such turmoil? No, by heaven, it does not. You could have got rid of all this long ago, and only be charged, if charge there is, with being rather slow and dull of comprehension. And yet even this can be worked on, unless you ignore or welcome your stupidity. 6. One sort of person, when he has done a kindness to another, is quick also to chalk up the return due to him, A second is not so quick in that way, but even so he privately thinks of the other as his debtor, as is well aware of what he has done. A third sort is in a way not even conscious of his action, but is like the vine which has produced grapes and looks for nothing else once it has borne its own fruit. A horse that has raced, a dog that has tracked, a bee that has made honey, and a man that has done good. None of these knows what they have done, but they pass on to the next action, just as the vine passes on to bear grapes again in due season. So you ought to be one of those who, in a sense, are unconscious of the good they do. Yes, he says, but this is precisely what one should be conscious of, because it defines the social being to be aware of his social action, and indeed to want his fellow to be aware of it also. True, but you misunderstand the point I am now making, and for that reason you will fall into one of the first categories I have mentioned. They too are misled by some sort of plausible logic. But if you want to follow my meaning, don't fear that this will lead you to any deficiency of social action. 7. A prayer of the Athenian people. Rain, rain, dear Zeus, rain on the cornfields and the plains of Athens. Prayer should be thus simple and open, or not at all. 8. Just as it is commonly said that Asclepius has prescribed someone horse riding, or cold baths, or walking barefoot, so we could say that the nature of the whole has prescribed him disease, disablement, loss, or any other such affliction. In the first case, prescribed means something like this: ordered this course for this person as conducive to his health. In the second, the meaning is that what happens to each individual is somehow arranged to conduce to his destiny. We speak of the fitness of these happenings as masons speak of the fit of squared stones in walls or pyramids, when they join each other in a defined relation. In the whole of things there is one harmony, and just as all material bodies combine to make the world one body, a harmonious whole, so all causes combine to make destiny one harmonious cause. Even quite unsophisticated people intuit what I mean. They say, fate brought this on him. Now, if brought, also prescribed. So let us accept these prescriptions just as we accept those of Asclepius. Many of them too are harsh, but we welcome them in the hope of health. You should take the same view of the process and completion of the design of universal nature as you do of your own health, and so welcome all that happens to you, even if it seems rather cruel, because its purpose leads to the health of the universe and the prosperity and success of Zeus. He would not bring this on anyone, if it did not also bring advantage to the whole, no more than any given natural principle brings anything inappropriate to what it governs. So there are two reasons why you should be content with your experience. One is that this has happened to you, was prescribed for you, and is related to you, a thread of destiny spun for you from the first by the most ancient causes. The second is that what comes to each individual is a determining part of the welfare, the perfection, and indeed the very coherence of that which governs the whole. Because the complete whole is maimed if you sever even the tiniest fraction of its connection and continuity. This is true of its constituent parts, and true likewise of its causes. And you do sever something, to the extent that you can, whenever you fret at your lot. This is, in a sense, a destruction. 9. Do not give up in disgust or impatience if you do not find action on the right principles consolidated into a habit in all that you do. No, if you have taken a fall, come back again, and be glad if most of your actions are on the right side of humanity, and love what you return to, Do not come back to philosophy as schoolboy to tutor, but rather as a man with ophthalmia returns to his sponge and salve, or another to his poultice or lotion. In this way you will prove that obedience to reason is no great burden, but a source of relief. Remember too that philosophy wants only what your nature wants, whereas you are wanting something unnatural to you. Now, what could be more agreeable than the needs of your own nature? This is the same way that pleasure trips us. But look and see whether there is not something more agreeable in magnanimity, generosity, simplicity, consideration, piety. And what is more agreeable than wisdom itself when you reflect on the sure and constant flow of our faculty for application and understanding? 10. Realities are warped in such a veil, as it were, that several philosophers of distinction have thought them altogether beyond comprehension, while even the Stoics think them hard to comprehend. And every assent we may give to our perceptions is fallible. The infallible man does not exist. Pass, then, to the very objects of our experience. How short-lived they are, how shoddy. A catamite, a whore, a thief could own them. Go on now to the characters of your fellows. It is hard to tolerate even the best of them, not to speak of one's difficulty in enduring even oneself. In all this murk and dirt, in all this flux of being, time, movements, things moved, I cannot begin to see what on earth there is to value or even to aim for. Rather the opposite. One should console oneself with the anticipation of natural release, not impatient of its delay, but taking comfort in just these two thoughts. One, that nothing will happen to me which is not in accordance with the nature of the whole. The other, that it is in my control to do nothing contrary to my God and the divinity within me. No one can force me to this offence. 11. To what use, then, am I now putting my soul? Ask yourself this question on every occasion. Examine yourself. What do I now have in this part of me called the directing mind? What sort of soul do I have after all? Is it that of a child, a boy, a woman, a despot, a beast of the field, a wild animal? 12. Here is a way to understand what sort of things the majority take to be goods. If you think of the true goods there are, wisdom, for example, self-control, justice, courage, with these in your mind, you could not give any credence to the popular saying of too many goods to make room, because it will not apply. But bearing in mind what the majority see as goods, you will hear and readily accept what the comic poet says as a fair comment. Even the majority can intuit this difference. Otherwise, this saying would not both cause offence and rejection, while at the same time we take it as a telling and witty comment on wealth and the privileges of luxury and fame. Go on, then, and ask whether we should value and judge as goods those with which, when we have thought of them, would properly apply to their owner the saying, "He is so rich he has no room to shit." 13. I am made up of the causal and the material. Neither of these will disappear into nothing, just as neither came to be out of nothing. So every part of me will be assigned its changed place in some part of the universe, and that will change again into another part of the universe, and so on to infinity. A similar sequence of change brought me into existence, and my parents before me, and so back in another infinity of regression. Nothing forbids this assertion. Even the universe is subject to the completion of cycles. 14. Reason and the art of reasoning are faculties self-determined by their own nature and their own products. They start from the relevant premise and follow the path to the proposed end. That is why acts of reason are called right acts, signifying the rightness of the path thus followed. 15. One should pay no attention to any of those things which do not belong to the man's portion incumbent on him as a human being. They are not demanded of a man. Man's nature does not proclaim them. They are not consummations of that nature. Therefore, they do not constitute man's end either, nor yet any means to that end, that is, good. Further, if any of these things were incumbent on a man, then it would not have been incumbent on him to disdain or resist them. We would not commend the man who shows himself free from need of them. If these things were truly goods, a man who fails to press for his full share of any of them could not be a good man. But in fact, the more a man deprives himself of these or such like, or tolerates others depriving him, the better a man he is. 16. Your mind will take on the character of your most frequent thoughts. Souls are dyed by these thoughts. So dye your own with a succession of thoughts like these. For example, where life can be lived, so can a good life. But life can be lived in a palace, therefore a good life can be lived in a palace. Again, each creature is made in the interest of another. Its course is directed to that for which it was made. Its end lies in that to which its course is directed, and where its end is, there also for each is its benefit and its good. It follows that the good of a rational creature is community. It has long been shown that we are born for community. Or was it not clear that inferior creatures are made in the interest of the superior, and the superior in the interest of each other? But animate is superior to inanimate, and rational to the merely animate. 17. To pursue the impossible is madness, and it is impossible for bad men not to act in character. 18. Nothing happens to any creature beyond its natural endurance. Another has the same experience as you, either through failure to recognize what has happened to him, or in a display of courage he remains calm and untroubled. Strange, then, that ignorance and pretension should be stronger than wisdom. 19. Things of themselves cannot touch the soul at all. They have no entry to the soul, and cannot turn or move it. The soul alone turns and moves itself, making all externals presented to it cohere with the judgments it thinks worthy of itself. 20. In one respect, man is something with the closest affinity to us, in that it is our duty to do good to men and tolerate them. But in so far as some are obstacles to my proper work, man joins the category of things indifferent to me, no less than the sun, the wind, a wild animal. These can impede some activity, yes, but they form no impediments to my impulse or my disposition, because here there is conditional commitment and the power of adaptation. The mind adapts and turns around any obstacle to action to serve its objective. A hindrance to a given work is turned to its furtherance. An obstacle in a given path becomes an advance. 21. Revere the ultimate power in the universe. This is what makes use of all things and directs all things. But similarly, revere the ultimate power in yourself. This is akin to that other power. In you too, this is what makes use of all else, and your life is governed by it. 22. What is not harmful to the city does not harm the citizen either. Whenever you imagine you have been harmed, apply this criterion. If the city is not harmed by this, then I have not been harmed either. If I, on the other hand, harm is done to the city, you should not be angry, but demonstrate to the doer of this harm what he has failed to see himself. 23. Reflect often on the speed with which all things in being or coming into being are carried past and swept away. Existence is like a river in ceaseless flow, its actions a constant succession of change, its causes innumerable in their variety. Scarcely anything stands still, even what is most immediate. Reflect too on the yawning gulf of past and future time, in which all things vanish. So in all this it must be folly for anyone to be puffed with ambition, racked in struggle, or indignant at his lot, as if this was anything lasting or likely to trouble him for long. 24. Think of the whole of existence, of which you are the tiniest part. Think of the whole of time, in which you have been assigned a brief and fleeting moment. Think of destiny. What fraction of that are you? 25. Another does wrong. What is that to me? Let him see to it. He has his own disposition, his own action. I have now what universal nature wishes me to have, and I do what my own nature wishes me to do now. 26. The directing and sovereign part of your soul must stay immune to any current in the flesh, either smooth or troubled, and keep its independence. It must define its own sphere and confine those affections to the parts they affect. When, though, as must happen in a composite unity, these affections are transmitted to the mind along the reverse route of sympathy, then you must not try to deny the perception of them, but your directing mind must not of itself add any judgment of good or bad. 27. Live with the gods. He lives with the gods who consistently shows them his soul content with its lot, and performing the wishes of that divinity, that fragment of himself which Zeus has given each person to guard and guide him. In each of us this divinity is our mind and reason. 28. Are you angry with the man who smells like a goat, or the one with foul breath? What will you have him do? That's the way his mouth is, that's the way his armpits are. So it is inevitable that they should give out odours to match. But the man is endowed with reason, you say, and if he puts his mind to it, he can work out why he causes offence. Well, good for you. So you too are no less endowed with reason. Bring your rationality, then, to bear on his rationality. Show him, tell him. If he listens, you will cure him, and no need for anger. Neither hypocrite nor whore. 29. You can live here in this world just as you intend to live when you have left it. But if this is not allowed you, then you should depart life itself, but not as if this were some misfortune. The fire smokes, and I leave the house. Why think this any big matter? But as long as no such thing drives me out, I remain a free man, and no one will prevent me doing what I wish to do, and my wish is to follow the nature of a rational and social being. 30. The intelligence of the whole is a social intelligence. Certainly it has made the lower for the sake of the higher, and set the higher in harmony with each other. You can see how it has subordinated some creatures, coordinated others, given each its proper place, and brought together the superior beings in unity of mind. 31. How have you behaved up to now towards gods, parents, brother, wife, children, teachers, tutors, friends, relations, servants? Has your principle up to now with all of these been say no evil, do no evil? Remind yourself that you have been through and had the strength to endure, that the story of your life is fully told and your service completed. How often you have seen beauty, disregarded pleasure and pain, foregone glory, and been kind to the unkind. 32. Why do unskilled and ignorant minds confound the skillful and the wise? Well, what is the mind of true skill and wisdom? It is the mind which knows the beginning and the end, and knows the reason which informs all of existence and governs the whole in an appointed cycles through all eternity. 33. In no time at all ashes or bare bones, a mere name or not even a name, and if a name, only sound and echo. The prizes of life, empty, rotten, puny. Puppies snapping at each other, children squabbling, laughter turning straight to tears, and faith, honour, justice, and truth fled up to Olympus from the wide earth. So what is there left to keep us here, if the objects of sense are ever changeable and unstable, If our senses themselves are blurred and easily smudged like wax, if our very soul is a mere exhalation of blood, if success in such a word is vacuous, what then? A calm wait for whatever it is, either extinction or translation. And until the time for that comes, what do we need? Only to worship and praise the gods, and to do so, and to do good to men, to bear and forbear, and to remember that all lies within the limits of our poor carcass, and our little breath is neither yours nor in your power. 34. You can always ensure the right current to your life if you can first follow the right path, if, that is, your judgments and actions follow the path of reason. There are two things common to the souls of all rational creatures, God or man. They are immune to any external impediment, and the good they seek resides in a just disposition and just action, with this the limit of their desire. 35. If this is no wrongdoing of mine, nor the result of any wrong done to me, and if the community is not harmed, then why do I let it trouble me? And what is the harm that can be done to the community? 36. Don't let the impression of other people's grief carry you away indiscriminately. Help them, yes, as best you can and as the case deserves, even if their grief is for the loss of something indifferent. But do not imagine their loss as any real harm. That is the wrong way of thinking. Rather, you should be like the old man in the play who reclaimed at the end his foster child's favourite toy, never forgetting that it was only a toy. So there you are, broadcasting your pity on the hustings. Have you forgotten, man, what these things are worth? Yes, but they are important to these folk. Is that any reason for you to join their folly? 37. There was a time when I met luck at every turn. But luck is the good fortune you determine for yourself, and good fortune consists in good inclinations of the soul, good impulses, good actions.